Julie Lowe has over 25 years of counseling experience and is a registered play therapist supervisor, which I find so interesting. She's a foster and adoptive mom and the author of several books, including Helping Your Child with a Bully, Helping Your Anxious Child, and Teens and Suicide. And her new kids book helps readers recognize and respond to bullying, and it's part of the Good News for Little Hearts series. Gus Gets Badgered follows three animal friends who befriend a new cub in town who isn't very kind to Gus. Julie, welcome. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So this is a story with a great lesson in it. What are some characteristics, let's just dive right in, of a bully that we see in Wesley?
Yeah, I think probably things that we all could associate with. It's when it is somebody who uses force, intimidation, aggressiveness, and that it is habitual. You tend to see a pattern in this person's behavior towards you or towards others.
Now, when should we not call mistreatment bullying? Because you say in this awesome resource section at the back of the book to just be careful not to misuse the label.
Yeah, and I guess one of the reasons I say that is because as a counselor, I hear that, and in the schools, we're hearing that over and over. When somebody does something you don't like, or you are mistreated by somebody, it immediately falls in that bullying category, because rightly so, we're taking bullying seriously. But it also means now that language can be turned and weaponized in ways that aren't helpful. And just to add to that, I mean, our kids, as we know, are broken, fallen, sinful human beings who make mistakes. And if every time they mistreat somebody, we call it bullying, then it escalates the way we respond to it, rather than also saying, yes, it was wrong. Yes, it was sinful. Yes, it needs to be dealt with. Yes, you need to apologize. But I think we just got to be careful that we don't dump it all into a category of bullying, when that does tend to rise to more serious, repetitive, aggressive behaviors and actions.
Do you find that bullies, I'm using air quotes here, are always mean, or is there kindness that shows up as well?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, it's easy to just paint a bully as a big monster, right? And so I am sure there are times that there is kindness, or even somebody who's not self-aware of the ways in which they are bullying. And then you have levels of bullying that present as kind but are still manipulative and aggressive. So again, great question, because it can operate that whole spectrum. And we tend to just want to be black and white. Somebody's good or somebody's bad, rather than realizing we all struggle. So I think you're right. I think there can be a bully who even at times is kind, which can be very confusing to a child.
And oftentimes there is something underlying happening, maybe at home, and we do hint at this in the book. But on that note, Gus's mom, this is the boy who's being bullied. She's always talking to him like he's small. Like, that's my growing boy, and she's doing this in front of his friends. Do we as parents make things worse?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the typical parent response, where instead of being a help, we can inadvertently add to it, even in our kindness. And sometimes even when we should intervene, our kids don't want us to intervene. So there's the complexity as well as a parent to say, I want to be wise in how I intervene. I want to be wise in when I intervene. I want to be wise when I give my child the tools and resources to know how to handle it themselves. And sometimes my child will or won't like that. And so wisdom says, I'm really seeking to understand what the need of the moment is.
So I have a son who's in grade 1 this year, and I can relate to so much of this because there is a little boy who is often not nice, but then sometimes he is nice. And I think as Christian parents, and I'd love your opinion on this, as Christian parents, should we be distancing our child from these kids, or are we wanting them to be a light in their life? Like, how do we find that balance?
Yeah, I love that. I want my children to be a light. I want them to learn to stand up to wrongdoers, to befriend those who are difficult to befriend. And I also want them to be role models. And so I don't think the answer is anytime people don't do what I like, I separate myself. is part of teaching our children how to be in the world, but not of the world. And I think the principle in dividing when I want to separate my child is when I see them causing harm consistently to my child. I see it pulling my child down spiritually, emotionally, mentally, in whatever way that might be. So I always want to ask, is my child have the ability, the maturity, the resources to do that? And when is it my job to also protect them from people who mistreat them? So again, wisdom issues.
This book really is written for younger kids, I find, but do you find, again, in your experience, that this is a topic more important to address for older kids? Like, where does that spectrum lie, do you find?
Well, the topic certainly is for middle school and high school. These things are happening, especially when you bring technology into the conversation. Then it's a whole nother level and a whole another serious level of bullying that takes place online. So the book is restricted for obviously young children, but the topic isn't. It's happening sadly way too often for young people.
I do like that this book, though, is written with, I find, lessons for all three parties' perspectives. It helps the readers who may be bullied. It helps the ones who are witnessing someone being bullied, and also kind of points on what to do on how to treat others so that you don't become a bully.
Yeah.
Where does learning about God fit into all of this?
Well, that hopefully is the foundation of how we would respond in any three of those situations or any three people, right? Wisdom comes from God. And therefore, we always need to have a spirit of prayer about how should I respond to each of these people? How should I respond to this situation? When are there situations I'm going to challenge my children to step in and love somebody well? And when am I going to challenge them to stand up? And when am I going to challenge them to go get help because this is beyond them? That's wisdom, that's prayer, that's understanding, it's discernment that understands the nature of the moment. And that all comes from the Lord, in relationship with the Lord.
I also love that in this back resource section, you do talk about seeing people as created in the image of God and how to use our words to lift people up. Do you want to summarize any of that?
Yeah, I used to say to my own kids, Ephesians 4 talks about building each other up and not tearing each other down. And I would just use a simple phrase, are you building up or tearing down? You could be building up in the way you laugh or make fun of people without even saying a word. You could be tearing down. You can be making noises that build up or tear down. You can be making looks that build up and tear down. That the way we live our life is either loving people well or it's either harming people. And so there's an ownership to say it's not just our words, it's our behaviors and actions that we want to love moves towards people and loves people well.
Well, the book definitely has a rounded, you empathize, but you also see a good resolution at the end. Lastly, what are some practical ways that parents can prepare their kids for these situations?
I love the idea of role playing because practice makes permanent is the word I use. That the more you practice, the more permanently the ability to know how to handle things comes into play. And so even just simple things like, what would you do if a friend said this to you? What would you do if one of your friends was mistreating somebody else? What would you do if? And those moments get kids talking in ways that they are just freely associating. They're not stressed. They're not in it in the moment. And it gives you the ability to help them think through how you'd want them to respond and what their options may be in any given moment. So it's a great way to help prepare kids.
Yeah. Oh, so good. And it's a lovely story, too. Julie Lowe, it's called Gus Gets Badgered, a book about bullying. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.